Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Psychiatric Exile. This week, I was hoping to share my thoughts about this movie called The Zone of Interest, which I watched probably a couple of months ago, and I found pretty disturbing. It affected me profoundly, at least in the short run. I don't know if it necessarily changed me in the long run, sadly, but I know it had a deep effect on me when I watched it and walked out of the movie theater. This movie was released earlier this year and it's directed by Jonathan Glazer. It's based, apparently, it's loosely based on a novel of the same name by Martin Amis, and the main studio responsible for the production was Film 4. I watched this movie in a movie theater. I was in Argentina at the time and had the chance to go to the movie theater and watch this movie. And I think oftentimes I was there with my wife, and I think oftentimes how you watch a movie can have a deep effect on the impression the movie makes on you. Um and the movie was packed. This was not a small theater room, and I mean there were at least, I would say, 50 people there. For this kind of movie, it was a substantial attendance. So, without giving any spoilers away, and in fact, I don't even know if spoilers are, I'm sorry, important in a movie like this. But in any case, the Nazi commandant of the Auschwitz concentration camp uh, lives with his wife and their five children in an idyllic home next to the camp. So this is based on actual events. We know about the Auschwitz concentration camp and the atrocities that took uh, 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 part there. And it's been reported that about 1 million people died at this concentration camp. And the commandant of the camp, the Nazi officer in charge, lived with his family there. Uh, it's surreal, they had this picture perfect little house with a picture perfect garden that the wife attended to, and their disciplined children, and appeared to be a loving family. And the wife took a lot of pride and comfort on what they had created there. And at one point, the family was supposed to be transferred to a different location, and she resisted leaving all that she had created, even though just behind the wall you could hear uh, all the atrocities taking place. The gunshots and the screams of people in agony, and the smoke from the crematorium. So somehow they were able to dissociate what was going on behind the wall, once on one side of the wall and the other, and concentrate on their quote unquote picture perfect family life, while they ignored the genocide taking place on the other side of the wall. And that's the contrast that gives the movie its power. It hits you like a punch in the gut. And it seems to me that we can take what the movie has to say at two different levels. The first one is the literal, and this is what I've mostly seen in reviews of the movie and whatnot. You can You can see the movie as a telling of the horrors of this specific situation and how these specific families continue to maintain an indifferent normality in the context of the ongoing genocide. But then it struck me while I was watching the movie, and this is why I felt it had such a profound effect on me. And that impression kept cooking inside of my head as I walked outside of the theater, that this wasn't necessarily the only way of looking at the movie, or the situation that the movie shows. And if you take what the movie has to say as a structure instead of a specific situation, if you abstract it a little bit, then what do you see? You see a situation where human beings aim to maintain a sense of normality, a sense of routine, a sense that nothing is going wrong, even under very extreme circumstances, as long as their own comfort it's not involved. So I don't care what's going on out there. I can ignore it. I can continue to convince myself that I'm a good, decent person raising good, decent children in a good, decent family, as long as my inner circle, my immediate surroundings, I can keep those at a certain standard. Kind of reminds me of the book of Job, where the devil tells God, yes, Job is still a faithful servant because you haven't touched him. We've done all these things to people around him, but we haven't laid a hand on him. Kind of, that was the ultimate test to make Job suffer in his own flesh. So, can in that sense, then this structure becomes relevant for most of us. In fact, what really struck me and hit me hard is that it's almost impossible in today's world to escape this structure. You're on one side of the world, on one side of the wall or the other. In fact, not just in today's world, but in the history of the world, is kind of what we do, right? It's a brutal world with limited resources, and whatever degree of comfort we can create in our daily life comes at the expense of somebody else's suffering because their resources are limited. So, this is the first point I'm making here in this slide. Taken as a structure, the situation becomes paradigmatic of a world where some people have more than they need while others have less than what they need to survive. And that's the first question. Is it okay for me to have more than I need in a world where there's people that have less than they need? And what's the correct course of action to that situation? Is it to sell everything I have and give it away and become poor myself? Like, do I have to choose between having more than I need, or having less than I need? Is there a point in between where we can all have what we need to survive? No more, nor or no less, or is that an utopia? And there's no easy answers to this. We cannot pretend that the world is ideal, and we can solve these difficult questions in an easy way. We can give all our resources to, I don't know, a poor country where people are starving to death, and you don't know if the resources are going to reach the people that need them. Probably the corrupt government uh, is going to take the resources, for their own to improve their own situation further. So it's kind of like, unless everybody does the right thing, the situation is not going to change, and your efforts are probably going to be in vain. Then it becomes a question of your values and your priorities and how you want to live your life. Kind of like Gandhi said, right? You act, you become the change that you want to see in the world. Um, so that would be one way out uh, of the inner conflict. You become the change that you want to see in the world, and you live with the consequences. But I think, in terms of that indifference, as we continue our daily normal lives, convincing ourselves that we are decent, normal people, um, while we turn a blind eye to the suffering in the world, is not different than what this family in the movie was doing. Um, so, in my nice house with electricity and running water and internet and cable and music and movies and whatever 24-hour entertainment I may need, and food and shelter, I forget that we are compromising the planet's ability to sustain life in the long run for human beings, and probably for, at least for, all mammals. Um, because the thing is, like they said in the classic TV series The Wire, shit rolls downhill. So if I have this little corner of the world where I can live and it doesn't smell like shit, it's because I kicked the shit to roll downhill to the level below me. you know, the shit didn't disappear. It didn't go away. It didn't cease to exist. It wasn't changed into gold. I just kicked it, so I didn't smell it, but I just kicked it to the to the level below me, so that there's gonna be more shit down there. If they can kick it down to the level below them, then lucky them. But if they can't, then there's more misery for them to deal with. So rich people can live in a, quote, pretty world, quote unquote, day to day, because they're kicking the shit to the poorer people. Rich people kick it down to the middle class, and the middle class kick it down to the poor, and the poor kick it down to the homeless, I guess, and the homeless to the people in undeveloped countries. So we can live in a rich country because we are kicking down the shit to poor countries. It's not like the shit ceased to exist, you know? Um, Pollution still there, crime still there, drug use still there, famine and starvation still there. The overuse of resources is still there. So, in a world of, this is my last point, in a world of limited resources, whatever illusion of harmony we create comes at the expense of pushing misery on somebody else. Just like the family in the movie The Zone of Interest. So that structure becomes universal, and I don't know if we can escape it. Not being part of the system, we kind of have to become. And I'm not talking about starting a revolution or anything like that, but or I should say, I'm not talking about starting a revolutionary movement. It seems to me that movements themselves are problematic. I'm talking about an individual stance, an ethical stance of what to do with those resources that you have in excess. Uh, the things that you have more of than you need to survive in a world where there's people that have less than they need to survive. Is that is that solved by policies, by politics, by movements, by entities, meaning non-for-profits and whatnot? Or is the right thing to do just to silently and individually um, become the change that you want to see in the world? I don't mean to, I don't mean, I certainly don't want to uh, give the impression that I have the answers to these very difficult questions, but I wanted to share the questions that the movie brought to my mind with you, and see what you think about this. Did the movie have a similar leave a similar impression with you? Whether it did or it didn't, what do you think about these questions? Do you think they're relevant to the movie or to our own situation? I'm interested in what you have to say about this. As usual, thank you for your time, and talk to you next time. Bye.